Hey guys, it's Bailey from Making Up the Midwest, and this is going to be a pretty sizable Tarina Tarantino haul. And as with most hauls, this will also include individual product reviews along with a little demo tutorial showing you how to get the look that I'm wearing today using most of the products that I got. Now, the brand Tarina Tarantino is not Drugstore by any means. It is a little bit pricier. The packaging is a little more luxe, and from what I've heard, the quality is worth it. So after lusting after some of these items for so long, they finally were on Hautelook, as they are pretty frequently, and I decided I just couldn't do without them anymore. So I picked a few of the items that I have been looking at for a long time up, and here they are. Let's get into them. The first product I want to talk about and that I use to create this look is the iDream Hyperlight Under Eye Brightener. It is an under eye brightening cream that comes in a pen format like so many others out there. There's some drugstore equivalents in L'Oreal and Maybelline. It's also very similar to the famous Touche Eclat. This has a little bit of a salmon undertone, so it's great for canceling out any dark under eye circles, which I tend to have. It's also a thicker consistency than either of the three I just mentioned, both Drugstore and the Touche Eclat. Has a little bit of a thicker consistency, and they actually say on the website that you can use this both over and under makeup. I personally have done that myself. I applied it first in the tutorial I'm wearing today. It blends out evenly. It does a really nice job at concealing and canceling out under eye circles. In fact, I'm not wearing any concealer today beyond this, so it definitely conceals and cancels, but the consistency is also such that I applied it over the foundation that I'm wearing today, which is a powder foundation from IT Cosmetics. So it is a cream product that plays really nicely with powder products. If you are a powder foundation girl and you want to take this on the go, which is it's kind of made for when it comes in this pen format, throw it in your purse, apply it over whatever you're wearing that day, and you don't have to worry about it messing anything up underneath. In general, I think this is a super long-lasting under-eye brightener. I didn't find myself needing to set it with powder, which I know a lot out there do, especially as the weather warms up here. Things just get kind of creasy and messy. Did notice having to touch this up one little bit, which was fantastic. Normally it retails for $22. Obviously, you can find it for less than that if you are on Hautelook. In general, though, I think it's worth it, and it's probably the best under-eye brightener I have come across to this point. So really love this product. Then I went on to the eyes, and to show you just how pigmented each of these shades that I have in the multiple shadow palettes that I got are, I didn't apply any of them over primer. So you are seeing this demo on unprimed eyes. The first thing I went in with was the iDream Highlight Duo in the Duo Amber and Electron. One is this gorgeous metallic bronze, while the other is a light satin champagne shade. I use the champagne shade on my inner corner using a flat shader brush. Then using that same flat shader, I went in with the bronze shade and applied that all over my lid. These are so smooth and so creamy. You don't need a primer to get pigmentation, obviously, as you can see. These retail for $19, but the size of these shadows are huge. As a comparison, here is like the chocolate bar palette. You can see that an individual shadow here, these are ginormous, which is fantastic because a shade like Electron can also be used as a cheek highlight. In fact, I love it for a cheek highlight or a brow highlight. Highlight in general, it's great, and you can fit a big face brush in it to do so. Then on the rest of the eyes, I went in with a different palette. This is the limited edition Floriculture palette. It retails for $48, which is pretty typical of a higher end palette. It contains 8 shades, and as you can see in here again, these are ginormous as a comparison. Once again, the chocolate bar palette here, you can see that there's just no comparison. These are also really conducive to fitting a larger brush in if you want to use any of these as a highlight shade or an all over contour shade, because there are some shadows in here that are conducive to that, and I'll go through them. Starting on the left, there's Hollyhock, which is a cooler tone matte camel shade. There's Trumpet, which is a matte to satin light peach shade. Night Hopper, which is pretty definitively satin and again kind of a cooler medium taupe, and Torella, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which is a satin cream shade. Moving on to the bottom row, there is Secret Pond, which is a beautiful light, nearly mint green, has a satin finish. Then there's Deep Dahlia that I used on my outer corner, and it's this deep velveteen, very rich feeling plum. Poppycock that I then used to blend out that Deep Dahlia, which is a fantastic periwinkle shade that in the pan looks like it has some larger gold sparkly shimmer, but once you actually put it on, that becomes less apparent, and it really is just a great smooth shadow that I love to blend in that deep dahlia. And then the last shade in this palette is Tiny Pansy, which is a really pretty light pink. Again, this looks like it has a little more shimmer to it, but once you blend it out, it doesn't come across that way at all when worn. And I forgot to mention that I used Hollyhock as my matte best friend blending color in my crease. It's fantastic for that. And I went in with Torella, again, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, to really brighten my brow bone. Once again, these shadows are really consistent with the other powder products I've tried from this brand so far. They're super smooth, and the price for this, for the amount of product you get, and it's a pretty standard 8-pan shadow palette, is really great. This in particular is a good springtime palette if you tend to like matte satin finishes and you like more subtle colors. Beautiful for springtime. The shadows perform really, really nicely. I think it's a fantastic palette. And to talk a little bit about the packaging, in addition to being just gorgeous, it is cardboard, so it's not super heavy, super robust, but it doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart anytime soon, and it does have a magnetic closure. So while you might have to worry about flying it open while you're traveling, it still feels relatively secure. Then I finished off the eyes with a product that I have heard nothing but raves about. It's the eyeliner, the iDream Highlight Hyperliner in the shade Broken Doll. This is a light pink leaning champagne that I applied to the waterline. The consistency is very smooth. I didn't personally notice any super fantastic lasting power out of these, especially on my waterline. On my inner corner, they did a little bit better, but I tend to have issues with this wearing on my waterline, so that wasn't really surprising. On the other hand, if you do want a bolder shade, one that you'd wear on the upper lash line, it does last beautifully for that, although this is just not a shade I would do that with. Onto the cheeks, I used the Doll Skin Cream Blush and Pressed Sparklicity Duo in the shade Mr. Pink, which is a hot pink blush paired with a Pearl Sparklicity, which is, I guess, code for super, super shimmery, sparkly highlighter. To apply the blush, I just used a stippling brush. This is the one from Real Techniques. It fits perfectly in there. Again, you get a ton of product within this pan, so it fit nicely in there. Dab that on the cheeks. It's super easy to build. In fact, I did build a little bit too much. Had to go back over with my foundation brush. It's very easy to build. It doesn't disturb, again, the powder foundation that I'm wearing, so it's a cream product that plays really nice with multiple different textures, and it lasts all day. Fantastic. On the other hand, there is also a powder product in here and a very sparkly, fallout prone product at that. So that was a little unfortunate. It's very shimmery and very sparkly. If you love highlighters like that, this might be for you, despite having to worry about it muddying up your cream product. I am personally not one to wear overt shimmer sparkles on my cheeks, or really anywhere else for that matter. So this is not my favorite pairing. I would have loved to see a different cream texture in this other pan, but still, if you love a good cream blush, you get a ton of product in this. It's super easy to build, it's long lasting, and it doesn't affect the other products you might be wearing on your face. The one thing you're just going to have to get over is that powder, that shimmery powder product. Moving on to the lips, I picked two. One was a lipstick. This is the Conditioning Lip Sheen in the shade Watermelon Wow, which was way less red than I anticipated, but still a very beautiful shade. I would consider this a Your Lips But Better for me. It just takes my lips up an extra notch or two. It has a sort of balmy finish, but still maintains its pigmentation really, really nicely. Because it does have kind of a balmy texture, the lasting power isn't super stellar, and the pigment doesn't stain lips, which some people may or may not love. But in general, I would say it lasts a good 2 to 3 hours, and it did condition my lips in the process, which is fantastic for those who are looking for a conditioning lipstick. You don't want to sacrifice color and wow factor just because your lips need a little bit of extra nourishment. This is great for that. Additionally, the packaging is very, very luxe feeling. It comes in this heavy metallic tube. You aren't going to have to worry about it flying apart in your purse and getting all over everything, because I think we've all had that happen to us once or 5 times more than it should have. That's not going to happen with this. So that is really nice as well. And I also got a gem gloss. This is in the shade Neon Vanity, which ends up not being quite as neon or bright as you might expect with a name like that. Even still, beautiful lip shade. The one thing that I have to kind of complain about, I guess, is that the wand fell apart. I think this is the only gloss where I've had, or lip product period, where I've had a wand start peeling, like the fuzzy applicator start peeling away. So that was the first downside I noticed. However, if you didn't get a lip gloss that was falling apart, the gloss itself is great. It glides on the lips, it provides a wonderful sheen, it conditions, it has a great amount of pigmentation. I would say it manages to be opaque without having any sort of milkiness, any sort of texture that can kind of sink into fine lines, as tends to happen with me. And beyond the applicator that fell apart, I would have to say that this is a really great gloss. If you really look for pigment with your gloss, this is a great one to reach for, but that stinking applicator. Then, because I gotta love anything shiny, I went with a pigment. This is a Sparklicity Pure in the shade Opal, and really it's just sort of an iridescent sparkle that you can apply anywhere. It's safe for the eyes, cheeks, body. You can apply it alone, or you can also mix it with a medium. This kind of has a green shift, so if you put it over a darker base, it will really pop out as a green, and worn alone, it's kind of a transparent base with a little bit of hint of green. I'm currently wearing it set with Inglot's Duraline all over the moving part of my lid today. I would say the texture of these is very similar to a MAC Reflex pigment. I tend to prefer this sort of dispenser over one like that because it has a little sifter in there, so it's a little more controlled. If you love these sort of multifaceted, multi-use sort of pigments, this should be right up your alley. You get a good amount of product, and the texture is such that it works really nicely with liquid mixing mediums. There is no chunkiness about it. It's super easy to smooth and blend over, whether you use it wet or dry. But it's definitely not going to be practical for everyone because it is sort of a little more in your face than a lot of the other products that I've talked about here today. And the last product I got, one that I didn't use to create this look because I just had too many eyeshadows, is an eyeshadow palette. This is the Jewel Shadow palette in the shade Diamond Dusk. And there are actually multiples of these 5-pan palettes. I got one that tended to lean more towards cool shades, grays, blacks, soft, light, cool pinks and blues, which I don't typically do. I tend to lean more towards warmer tones. I'm a warm tone kind of gal, but in an effort to kind of expand my eyeshadow collection, I went with a cool, and in this there is a soft, light, white shimmery shade that has a soft pink shift. Then there is a deeper, kind of dusty rose shade. Then there is a light, or a pale blue that has a sort of purple shift to it, a light purple shift. There's a mid-tone satiny shimmery gray here in the center, and then there's a deep black that has a satin finish that sort of borders on shimmery. Great for lining and great for deepening up the outer corner. The quality of these shadows is consistent with all of those that I have tried before, both in the Floriculture palette as well as the Duo. You do get slightly, or it looks like you get less amount of product in this. However, you do get 5 shades, so you can create many different looks. There's a great variety of finishes as well as light, mid, and deep tones, so you get the full array to create any kind of look you want. And in general, I have to say that these are some of the more interesting eyeshadow shades I have come across in a while because they have very subtle but very noticeable shifts in the pigment. It's really cool and interesting to see that, and these typically retail for $32, which again for 5 shadows of a higher end brand is pretty typical, and I'd say it's totally worth it. So that leads me to my concluding thoughts, which is what I would recommend, what I wouldn't recommend, all that jazz. So if you couldn't tell, I would recommend the shadows. If you were buying these full price, I would easily recommend all the shadows I've talked about. The Duo in Amber and Electron, the 5-pan palette that I just talked about, as well as the Floriculture palette, and this is limited edition, so I'm not sure how long it will be available, but if you want to try one thing from Tarina Tarantino, the shadows are fantastic. Added to the must-try list is the conditioning lip sheen. It just feels so rich and smooth on your lips without sacrificing any of the pigment or quality, and the packaging feels very, very luxe. On to items I might wait on a sale for include the cream blush. Despite the fact that I absolutely love the quality, the performance, the color of this cream blush. The sparkle powder in here just kind of ruined it for me. If you're going to pay full price, I would really want to use the whole thing. I just feel like this sparkle is going to get all in this cream, and not everyone loves a good chunky sparkle, especially as a face highlight. So this is something I absolutely recommend picking up from Hautelook, but if you're not a sparkle person, you might want to stay clear of otherwise. Next up is the eyeliner. While it's super smooth and long lasting on the upper lash line, I didn't notice stellar performance on my waterline, which is where I tend to have problems. So there again, while it's a beautiful shade, I would probably wait for a sale or on Hautelook again as well. Onto the gem gloss. The only downfall here was the wand. Beyond that, the gloss formula was great. If you love gel glosses that have pigmentation, that don't dry out the lips, this is a great one to, and it's not sticky. For those of you that really hate sticky glosses, it's a non-sticky gloss. I really recommend it. The only reason it fell short for me was because of the wand. And last is the sparkle powder. This is only going to appeal to a certain crowd anyway, so if you love yourself a good sparkle powder, this is one to look for. It's super finely milled, it mixes well with other mediums, and yet applies nicely on its own without feeling too gritty and too chunky. And in general, the shade Opal is just beautiful. It has a beautiful green shift. So if you love green shifts and you love a good shimmery sparkle opalescence, this is a good one to reach for. So that is all for me today. I'd love to hear if you've tried any of these products or certain shades of the products that I've mentioned in the comment section below. I definitely think I'm going to be picking up a few other, maybe of the eyeshadows of the 5-pan palette or of the duo eyeshadows. I'm telling you guys, they are amazing. So let me know if you have tried any, what you love in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!